Hello, freaks, geeks, degenerates, basement dwellers, vatniks, and all you beautiful scrufftards. Welcome to the War Zone. I'm Scruffy, and this is Scruffy Tales. And in this video, we will be doing something different. We will not be looking at maps, but we will be taking a look at some news related to the war between Ukraine and Russia and how all of this is beginning to well and truly affect the rest of Europe. And we're also going to take a look at some increased capabilities that the Ukrainians might soon possess and what have you. So let's get into it. So we have, well, to begin with, Russia plans to attack NATO. This is not bullshit. We have here this is in Swedish though, so a EU official, with some being high up in the ranks apparently, has revealed that Russia is considering a potential attack against NATO. And he was talking in this does seem like a Polish newspaper, doesn't it? Gazeta Wyborcza, maybe? I don't know. And so what he said in this interview with this newspaper was that the German military intelligence claims, or the German secret intelligence claims, that they have evidence that the Kremlin is discussing a attack against NATO, according to the Germans. So a trusted EU official said in an interview that the Germans have revealed information that claims that the Russians are discussing an attack against NATO. And he also highlights that nothing is confirmed. We don't know if anything's going to happen, but as he says, if they're discussing it, are they also planning to go through with it? We don't know. But such signals must be taken at the utmost seriousness. Russia might actually be ready for war, and so must we. We must also be ready for war. So Russia is talking about maybe attacking NATO. Now, this could, of course, be a psyop. The Russians might have, intentionally revealed this to the Germans so that NATO and Europe focuses more on defending their own borders instead of helping Ukraine. But it might also be, a proper discussion that the Russians are having. NATO and Europe is supplying Ukraine with a lot of weapons. And the Russians might see this as the West, NATO, and Europe being actually participating in the war. Therefore, those countries are fair to target, right? So it's like he says, if they are talking about it, we have to take it seriously. And on top of that, we have this. This is from French author, Swedish author Lars Wildring. I will provide a link down below to his website Cornucopia. He highlights here that France has actually given their hospitals instructions to prepare for large-scale warfare and mass casualty incidents, and they need to be prepared for this at the latest at March of 2026. And French hospitals should be able to receive between 10,000 to 50,000 wounded over a time period of 10 to 180 days. And it said that the mass cas situations should be handled as close to airports as possible, and stuff like that. So what this is, as he's highlighting here, this is France getting ready to receive troops from NATO's armies that are wounded, right? Wounded soldiers from NATO armies fighting on the front lines. They are going to be moved from the front lines to a rearward position, and this will be in France where they will be treated. And he continues to say it's not unlikely to suspect that Sweden and other European countries have also received are also planning for similar situations. But we know that the French are preparing to be able to take on 50,000 wounded in a very short period of time, in just a couple of weeks, couple of months. And France needs to be ready for this at the latest at March 2026. And that kind of does link up with what the Germans are saying, right? So the French and NATO is taking this seriously. NATO is currently preparing to go to war with Russia, or rather to respond to Russian military aggression against NATO. This should have us all well and truly worried, because NATO is taking this threat seriously. NATO is currently preparing for the worst: Russian attack against NATO countries. Continuing a bit here with what Lars Wildreng is writing on his website. Again, linked down below. It's going to be in Swedish, so if you're Scandinavian, head on over there and check it out. I think you're going to find it really interesting. But he also highlights here that Ukraine has conducted some impressive attacks. They have blown up a explosives and ammunition factory in Nizhny over in Novgorod Oblast in Russia. And like it says here, the plant is one of the largest Russian producers of explosives. It is able to equip almost all types of ammunition, aviation and artillery shells, aviation bombs, including those that are adjusted to the target, warheads of cumulative anti-tank guided missiles, ammunition for engineering troops, warheads for air defense missile systems. It equips the warheads of unified inter-service glide ammunition. Numerous explosions and a fire were recorded in the area of the target. So an important strike conducted by the Ukrainians at this crucial ammunition factory in Russia. Hopefully that will have serious effect on the Russian capabilities to conducting this war. And also this is in Swedish though, but this is pretty awesome. The Ukrainians apparently landed with a drone on top of a heavy anti-air system, and landed on it and followed along with it for 15 kilometers, and could track how that vehicle was moving. And then once the Russians realized the drone was on it, they panicked, and then the Ukrainians detonated it. But not until the vehicle had brought the drone into a refueling and rearming location where there was a lot of logistics going on, and several vehicles were there, and they were refueling, they were rearming, and then they detonated the drone. No idea how much of the surrounding area was affected by the detonation of the drone, but hopefully there was a massive explosion that took out several other vehicles and fuel trucks and what have you. So this is going to be the last one. We all know that the Ukrainians are building flamingos that they intend to launch at the Russians at some point. There's talks of tomahawks from the Americans at the moment. Really encouraging. But also, I think this has gone under the radar a bit. Barracudas. Now, what is this? This is a private contractor that has been in contact with the Ukrainians. The Ukrainians are already using some of their missiles. But now there's talk that the Ukrainians might get the largest in the Barracuda family. And as you can see, Ukraine is primarily interested in the last variant, which can fly up to 900 kilometers. It is this Barracuda 500 or Barracuda M, the largest version in the Barracuda family. And it carries a payload up to 45 kilometers, 45 kilos. The missile can be launched from both air and ground platforms, although ground launches may reduce its range to about 700 kilometers. Anduril, the company that builds these, says the missile can be fired from existing platforms such as HIMARS, while the company is also developing its own launch system. Ukraine, for example, could launch these missiles from F-16s, which would be the most optimal arrangement. So yes, there's a lot of talk about flamingos and tomahawks, but barracudas are also of note. Ukraine might actually receive the most advanced of the Barracuda missiles, and they already have some of the smaller. The Barracuda 100, I believe, is already used by the Ukrainians. But we see here another advantage of Anduril's approach is mass production, something that Ukraine obviously really wants. The company talks about thousands of missiles per year, pinch of salt, but still. A major current problem with systems supplied to Ukraine is limited quantities. Deliveries often number in the tens and are quickly exhausted. Having hundreds or thousands of missiles in reserve would allow planning for more operations and a higher cadence of strikes against Russia. So this is Anduril's goal, to be able to provide Ukraine with hundreds, maybe thousands of missiles. Specifically, strikes on Russian oil refineries would degrade production capacity, exert pressure on the Russian economy, and make it possible to weaken Russia economically rather than solely by force. Therefore, the more means Ukraine has for such strikes, the more significant the impact. And because missiles carry larger warheads than drones, they can also be used against airfields and large military targets, which would help reduce the strength of Russian offensives. So, yes, there's a lot of talk about flamingos and tomahawks, but we should not forget barracudas. It does appear as if this is something that the Ukrainians are really interested in, and the company that makes them, Anduril, are really interested in getting production going to be able to assist the Ukrainians. And not so strange if Anduril gets a receipt from this war that their missiles are effective and you can produce them en masse. Of course, then other countries will want to use them as well, right? So this is a big deal. I think this might actually be something we will be talking about quite a lot in the future. Ukraine utilizing barracudas to conduct long-range strikes against the Russians. Right, that's it. Very concerning, I think, that we have the German intelligence telling us that Russia is planning on maybe attacking NATO, and the French taking it seriously. And if the French are taking it seriously, that means NATO as a whole is taking it seriously. The French are preparing to receiving casualties from battles where NATO armies are taking part of, right? That's the whole point. NATO is planning on taking casualties from the front line far away from the battles and placing them in France so that they can receive medical treatment in France. Chances are we're seeing similar preparations in Germany, Sweden, Denmark, Norway, and elsewhere. NATO is preparing for the worst. And truth be told, so should we. Not encouraging, but anyway, like we always say, go på marsch, Ukraine, and give them hell.